But I think I sort of sensed it because I knew that something was happening inside. And the hardest bit in all of that time is the fact that Harry couldn't tell us, he couldn't. And I just wanted to get him out of there. I just wanted to take him home and care for him at home. And was learning, obviously, all the NG food feeding.
It's complicated, isn't it? But were you allowed to do that?
Yeah, eventually they showed me, and then I used to feed Harry. I just wanted, as his mum, the bits that I could do. Yes. I wanted to do. Yeah, that's
totally fair.
The bathing, the care, the changing his pads and feeding him. I'd have done it all if I could, but it was important to me. And then after that, we were just watching and waiting all the time, and then it went on for. Another 4 weeks, and then we got to it being close to 10 weeks. And then Harry, the one night, he'd been and had a scan because he kept on raising his left arm like this and groaning. And I flew out the first time it happened. I flew out to put Harry into isolation because he kept having a really bad tummy. And also because I'd had to start him on oral chemotherapy again because obviously being in a coma, he couldn't cope with the intensive. So when he started doing this, I flew out the door and said, look, what's happening? Is he waking up? Is he in pain? And we didn't know. And then Harry had another scan, and it showed that Harry had got blood clots, which were just stemming and running down, and I imagine that they didn't stop there. And it just seemed like every time there was bad news and we clung on to the hope, because the hope of the chemo was that the chemo they were giving him, vincristine, would target the blood vessels which feed the tumour. For us, that was hope. That's good. Get it in him, give him that, and hopefully it will crush whatever's happening and feeding his tumour. And then it was like another problem, and it felt like the doors were closing on Harry. But at this time, even his consultant knew, his oncologist consultant, that Harry was still Harry behind it. So we were very careful in terms of talking in the room in front of Harry, whether he could listen. We just didn't know, and that was the hardest part of him, not knowing we were there or not. And then after we'd had these results again about his blood clots, and they couldn't give him a certain drug, I think it was called
warfarin.
Yeah.
It's for the
it was
basically for clots.
Yeah, they couldn't give him that because of his.
For the hemorrhage, it would be a contraindication. Yeah, it could make things worse.
Absolutely.
It's a catch-22 medically, if you like.
Yeah, and I think it was something called Clexane, if I remember right, that they were giving into his leg, and
a new antiplatelet drug, I think that is.
Yeah, to try and disperse, and move them. But within that, it was just like, I think at that point, it was almost like Harry had had enough that day. And once again, his breathing had stopped, and not stopped, but his breathing was suffering, and they kept putting him on more oxygen, and eventually we ended up back down in ICU, where they ventilated him again and sedated him, and everything. It seems like we were fine. That morning before that happened, we were sat round a table, about 10 doctors, occupational health, physiotherapists, because we were just so desperate to get home, because I just wanted to give him the very best care. I promised him that we'd get him home, and me and my husband and his brother and sister were just going to look after Harry, obviously with nurses coming in even whilst he was in his coma, and a week to the day, just such a different story. Harry, after a few days being in intensive care, they decided to get a neurologist to have a look at Harry, and he'd never had one before. And he did a EEG with the stickers all over his head. And it was actually from that, we'd actually got in the room at the time after that, a special visitor would come to see Harry, and he sat at the bedside with me, and the consultant in ICU said, look, Harry's got no brain activity whatsoever, and there is no chance that it will recover. She said, however, we are going to try something, and I don't know what it was called, but they basically gave him class A drugs. But she made it very clear to me and my husband, we have to see a continual improvement in Harry. She said, she said, day one, we need to see him start to stir, open his eyes. Day two, he needs to be doing that and then some more. And she was very, very harsh the way she delivered it, and to make it very clear. But for the first time in all the fluffiness, I appreciated her direct. This is how it is. And for the first time, I understood. And some people might think, wow, you know, if he's in ICU, things are pretty bad. But when you're told, oh, we've just given his body a rest and da-da-da, you can't understand how serious it sort of is, because you just trust and believe. And they tried it, so it started on the Wednesday, and they said we're given 3 days, and if we don't see continuous improvement for 3 days, you know, there is nothing more. And I could actually tell that Harry was not Harry anymore, and I can see it now with the photos I've got when I look at Harry. I knew that he'd gone, or his brain had gone. And he didn't
make any progress on that final
first day. As soon as they gave him straight away, you know, and me and my husband just sat there watching and trying to encourage him to wake up, and he didn't. And then we just said enough, because it was just, he'd had so many things, and you know, going into his arteries, and he was just covered in he just had enough. And I just said enough. And then we had to make arrangements to fulfil Harry's dream and get him home. So the hospital was just fantastic, and you know, from the minute that was the call, then everybody just flew around on phones, doctors, nurses, consultants, you know, Macmillan nurses, just trying to help us get Harry home.
So his last wish was to be at home in those last few days?
We'd never discussed dying. We never ever thought Harry would. You know, he went into hospital, obviously appearing okay in himself. He was witty even the morning of his surgery, and for us, when he went down for surgery, that's when we lost him, really.
Okay.
You know, we didn't get Harry back. We never had a conversation after that. That was it. And they all did a wonderful job, and then on the Thursday night, me and my daughter, I stayed in ICU anyway. I just refused to leave Harry, so I just stayed in an armchair, and my daughter stayed too. And we just got Harry ready to come home, and then we had an ambulance, and although I think they were really worrying, because in the morning Harry was on maximum ventilation, and they said, look, we need to get him home quick, and there was a worry that we wouldn't get him home at all. So they brought the ambulance forward an hour, and when me and Harry went home, and they put Harry into, obviously we got a special bed at home for him, and they thought that once they removed the ventilator at home that he'd die within an hour, but he got his wish, and he had the last night at home, and he died probably 36 hours later. Which was hard, you know, to watch and to understand, but you know, we were there, and his brother and his sister lay on his bed and he died in my